Sit back, relax, and join William and Lee on their journey through the strange and mysterious world.
Cool. Yeah, welcome to season 2, episode 5 of Strange and Mysterious World. I went down a bit of a what's the word? Well, what's the word I'm looking for? A really sad event that happened this last week. After you fucking tell me to go and listen to this Bart or Sibels, whatever the fucking his name is. So now this whole Bart Oak is on this bloody thing, the fake moon landing. Now I've always been a pro moon landing. Yeah, I've always said, no, we've definitely landed. Yes, like from the previous podcast some time back, I do believe that we had some issues or they had some fake footage, but there were reasons for that. But with the information and stuff that he came up with, and I listened, I mean, that was a long thing, dude. That was like 3.5 hours on the Joe Rogan Experience that I listened to. And man, I'm so disappointed today. I'll be honest. I was so disappointed because everything that he came up with there, you can't refute. You can't, do you know what I mean? You can't just go back and you can't say to them, no, he's talking shit about this, that. Yes, the photos can be doctored and the photos could still come out as the reasons for why they did the photos. But the other stuff that it talks about not having enough protection going through the Van Allen belt, about the amount of fuel they had on board to get to the moon was not enough. The amount of rockets they had on the actual Apollo missions were not enough to get them even into space. So all those kind of things just so disappointed me, but I can't even explain to you. When I finished, and I still left you a message, when I'd finished listening to that, I just said to you, fuck, this just pissed me off, man. I can't actually believe that we, looking at the evidence, it doesn't look like we landed up going to the moon.
Well, it's I'm glad. Because when I sent, because I've been following Bart Sibels for a while, and I knew the whole fake moon landing thing, and it's, everybody's, and Bart Sibels being hated, from, I mean, of course, I mean, if shattered people's dreams of, a lot of all the patriot American citizens, like, telling that the moon landing is not fake, you're going to be hated, But the thing is that, like, there's some campaigns, but when I sent it to you, like, and you were saying to me, like, no, like, you're like, I could see you were like quite headstrong. You're like, no, that people landed on the moon. And I was like, okay, well, let's just put it on the show and let's discuss it. Let's see what, like, I want to hear your theory or whatever, and then you sent me the message back after you listened to him on Joe Rogan, which was great because he went on to Joe Rogan, which I thought was amazing because, like, most people think he's a nut job, so it's quite cool that he was on Joe Rogan. And when I saw he was on Joe Rogan, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it, Joe Rogan interviewed him. This is insane. So,
but the funny thing is, Joe actually tried to, in the beginning, I was like laughed because Joe was giving him stick about the photos and about certain thing, which is, what do you call it? The steel man. He calls it the steel man, which is the adversary. Yeah.
But he had to, because, I mean, imagine if you have, like, one of the craziest conspiracy theories on the planet on one of the most listened to podcasts. I mean, he had to, because people would be so pissed off with them and so angry that because, they always say, like, why did you give that guy a platform, and all of this shit. So, and I just what I love about Joe, he's daring, and he goes and he does that. And I'm glad you listened to that one because, and it was good because I'm glad that Joe Rogan actually did Steel Man, what he calls Steel Man. He was Devil Advocate, because it was nice to hear, like, an argument, to see, like, I mean, Joe Rogan is no, like, freaking rocket science or a scientist or freaking whatever, like a scientist or whatever. So, but it was good to have what people, and look, I've got a few theories to some of those things that why some of those things could have been like my own arguments. But after listening to that, and also obviously, knowing his work and if you go onto his website, Bart's website, and seeing like all the stuff that he's come up with, some of it's a bit nutty and like he pushes it a little bit too far. And I'm thinking like, okay, dude, like, you've got some really cool points here and it's like really nice, but sometimes you're just pushing and you're trying to add stuff on, and that's where you're making it sound a little bit, which like I always find with these guys like that have a good case, but then they try and push it so far, and then it starts sounding a bit nutty, and you're like, no, stop doing that, because you're going to start discrediting yourself if you start going too far. You just keep the good solid stuff, which is some great solid stuff there. And but anyway, do you want to go through some of the points like that's
yeah. So the things that kind of pushed me towards perhaps more on the thought, because I'm still on the fence, but I'm more on the fence of falling over to what old Bart was saying.
Yeah.
And the only reasons, look, the photos I'm not worried about, because every time they brought up the photo issue,
I think
Joe and his sidekick, and his sidekick were kind of going on about lighting, and it could have been the sun and this and that. Next thing, the reflection off the craft. So I'm not worried about the photos. The photos sure
like
could have been
easy to attack. That's why everybody attacks.
Yes.
But then look, they didn't have anything else to say for the rest of the stuff. But it's so easy to attack the photos. So then everyone
correct
just on the photos. It's like, guys, just fuck the photos. Just fucking just throw those photos away. Just look at the other evidence. Like
yes,
fucking insane.
So now a few things that brought to mind what was happening here. So obviously after Operation Paperclip, which was the Americans getting hold of the NASA scientists, well, the German scientists, the Nazi scientists, and bringing them back to the US, they then started working on the space program. Okay, and obviously Werner von Braun was part of that. Well, he was actually heading that. But even Werner von Braun's words said that they were not ready. They were nowhere near ready to get to the moon. Because as to what JFK was trying to say, that they get it ready by 1969 or whatever, whenever he predicted. He said, before the 10 years is over, we will get to the moon. So now they were obviously rushing, because the Russians also had their space program, because they had also taken Nazi scientists on their side, and they were also developing the rocket systems and stuff to get to the space. So it was Russia and America racing. But if you really look at it, it's actually Germany versus Germany, because they were both German scientists on either side. They were both rushing against each other to get to space, although the Russians were using their German scientists and the Americans were using their German scientists. But anyway, whatever the situation is, couple of problems. So
it was in the heart of the Cold War, wasn't it? And then
yes. So whoever came out on top would be the ruler. They would have one over on the other one. So if the Russians had won it, they would have had one hand up on the Americans.
It was like a huge competitive thing for for winning basically world dominance. So
100%.
There was a lot on the cards. A lot.
Correct.
So I think that's why we'll get into it more, like why it could have been faked and why why. But anyway, so bring up the points, man.
All right. So one of the points were the fact that the rockets on the Gemini project were not strong enough to get it into even to the atmosphere. Apparently, they needed 3 times that load to get it into the atmosphere, and then from there they hit a Van Allen belt. Now, the Van Allen belt, as everybody knows, is that radiation belt that it's in our atmosphere, just above our atmosphere before you go into space. Now, this is heavy radiation. So when Apollo 11 was going through, the amounts of radiation protection that craft had was equivalent to, well, when you're getting a dentist's scanning, like the radiation.
It says 20 times more potent than an X-ray of when they X-ray your chest, and then when you X-ray your chest, you have to put the person X-raying has to put like lead on and
yes.
like a lead thing to protect yourself, and this is like 20 times more the radiation, 20,000 times more the radiation. It's like insane.
But the protection they had was only like a sixth of what you get when you go for a radiation scan. So it's not enough to even protect you from a scan if you had gone for a scan with your chest or a scan with whatever with the radiation that they're using. So it wasn't even enough to protect you from that. So how was it going to protect the people from going into the radiation belt?
But the thing
You
is
know
that
what I mean?
we can't get through the radiation belt even today. That's the thing. I
Yeah.
mean, scientists go look on the thing and they say, like, once we figure out how to get through the Van Allen belt, radiation belt, then we'll be able to, it'll be safe enough to send people into space or to the moon or whatever. And that was also in the Joe Rogan podcast, was one of the arguments with Bart, where they said, because there was one of the mainstream scientists said, like, yeah, but we can't get, it's not safe enough to send the people through that belt even now. We don't know how to do it. And they were arguing, like, yeah, but it's not, it'll be fine for the people, but it won't be fine for the technology. That's why they're saying it's not safe enough, because it might disturb the technology, and then obviously it's not safe because if the technology is not working, then they can't fly it or whatever. But then Bart's like, yeah, well, we don't. Why don't we have the technology today to do it then? Why? I mean, fuck it. If it's not going to kill the person, it's just going to kill the technology. Then why can't we? Why don't we have the technology now? When the technology that they used in those days to get to the moon was like 1/1,000,000th of a power of technology that your cell phone runs on, like the computer power, than what they have, what they had in those days. So either way, we still can't get through that radiation belt. So how did that get then?
So now the counteract to that, or the counter, when I did a bit of research on this, the counter thing to that, they were saying is, it's the people that are saying that we did get through it, the scientists, they were saying, so it's equivalent to when you're doing, when you're walking on on the lava rocks, when you're walking on those firestones, the fire walkers. So it's equivalent. It's like that. You've got to move quickly over it so that you don't get your feet burnt. So that's fine if it was maybe a 2-minute belt to get through. The problem is it takes 2 hours, dude. I've never seen a fire walker walking on rocks for 2 hours before he comes off the other end. He would have burnt himself to shit by the time he gets to the other end. Okay, so that whole thing is like a load of bollocks. That, it's like running on rocks. Yeah, if it was a quick distance, but it's not a quick distance. It takes 2 hours to get through it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So that whole thing that they've put through there is actually null and void. That's actually that's out of the picture. Now, the other thing is, what I actually laughed about is, apparently they were using back then, the car batteries back then, which I'm assuming you know how much car batteries weighed at that time. They were using them in the Apollo module to keep the electronics and to keep all the air conditioning and stuff going. All right. But the problem is, battery life is only like, you know what I mean? It's minimal. So they would never have had enough battery life to actually even get to the moon, never mind anything else. So with that, that's another story of a whole lot of bollocks that they had there, because there's no ways. That is also very heavy. So that's adding to the weight. You want to try and make your module lighter. So you can't be adding this heavy weight through to your modules to try and get them across. Now, the other thing is the amount of fuel that they used to get to the moon, apparently, was probably 1/8 of what it would really take to get you to the moon. So they've spoken to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is currently trying to get people to the moon. And he has specifically stated that it's going to take 6 way stations before you get to the moon to fuel. So you'll probably launch up into orbit, where now you're orbiting. You would then have to dock with a fuel station and fuel up. From there, you would then have to go off probably through that donut shape. Because remember now, the radiation belt, the Van Allen belt, you can actually get through if you go through the South Pole and the North Pole, because it's actually a donut. In those areas, it's kind of very weak. Yeah, so you can go through those areas.
Yeah, it's like a torus.
Yes.
Field.
Yeah. So when you go through that section, you're then going to have to dock again to fuel again, because that's been a few hours to go through. From there, you would then need another. So it's 6 docking stations all the way for the fuel that they say you need, compared to what the fuel is, what they're saying that they used in the 60s. The reason why this has become a problem is because back in the 60s, the people that were doing all this hoaxing didn't realize what was coming. They didn't realize the internet would have all this information. They didn't realize that people would start questioning and all the information and the technology that we have to counter what they've been saying. Do you know what I mean? So this
Yeah.
whole thing, they didn't realize. They actually thought they got away with it. But the problem is with all this information and all the stuff that we've got now, we can actually find out anything.
Yeah, and also they also destroyed all of the documentation, all of the. It's like the greatest achievement of the world, and they've destroyed everything, all of the data, everything that they had. They've destroyed it, even the equipment, everything that they used. They've destroyed it all. And you think like, why? Because the people have been trying to get all that information out of them, and they say no, we destroyed it. And you're like, well, the greatest achievement you've ever done in the world, you destroyed with how crazy stupid like is that? And also,
it's like you're going backwards. It's like you develop something, like as you said, you've developed something that is extraordinary. You've actually managed to do something that it's almost impossible to do, and then you just destroy it. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. As you said, that makes no sense. That there again shows you that they lied. And then one of the other things that they actually brought up was one of the spacewalkers. I think it was the third or the fourth guy that landed up going into space. He apparently he had a Polaroid photo that he left behind, that they took a photo of on the surface of the moon. But what Bart was saying is like, no, because that would have burned. As soon as you put it onto the floor, it would have burned up because the heat from the sun.
Yeah, they also were like saying like, how did the heat there to take the photos with that because they were using Hasselblad cameras, those like medium format cameras that you wind and take the pictures or whatever, and they say it's so hot that film wouldn't work. And also like the radiation, to get film through that radiation, it would have destroyed the film. Because I mean, like I know when I was shooting on film, because I'm in the film industry, like when we used to shoot on film, we would have to get special clearance for it not to go through those machines, like where they just check your luggage.
Because X-ray machines. Yeah.
You think if you've traveled somewhere like, in a plane somewhere, and you spent 5 million rand on a commercial, now you've got it all on this film, and now you've got to send it through so we would always get it through, ways that it wouldn't go through the thing. I've also, with my stills camera, I've sent, when I used to do stills photography, I sent the film through those things, and I never had a problem. But it's not as intense as that Van Allen radiation. It would have just like fried that film. Not to mention the temperatures on the moon. And then they said that there was a Hasselblad that was specially developed to house the film, and what. There was a whole thing about the Hasselblad camera making that film. So that's another interesting thing. How did they take those pictures on the moon?
Yeah, then obviously there's a bit of a conspiracy theory around the fact the Chinese actually know that the whole moon landing is fake. So they are blackmailing NASA for information on their technology so that they can get to the moon themselves. So they're blackmailing the guys.
Well, one of the most interesting, also this thing is the rocket power to come back. I mean, they
wouldn't have known.
They just popped off the fucking moon with a fucking little thing like, and then just came back home.
It was never tested, so they can't. Because remember, the moon is like 1/6 gravity of Earth. So they would never have known what it would take to actually launch that module back into space from the moon.
Yeah, and also
because remember, this was all the first time. It was never like they sent out a couple of probes to land on the moon, and then from there they had some rocket boosters to try and see how long it would come to get back to lift it into the atmosphere. They didn't do any tests. This was like a once off, and you hit in one day and you managed to do it fantastically well. You've landed on the moon for the first time ever, sending someone there without any testing.
Yeah, that's also another thing was that they said like in the history of all of our inventions and everything that we've ever developed aeronautically or anything ever. I mean, like just think about the Titanic and the Wright brothers, their first airplane. Everything that we've invented, it never ever the first time just worked perfectly. There was obviously like so many tests and whatever. And for some miraculous reason, we go to the moon, the hardest thing that the planet has ever done since there until now, and we pulled it off first time. Went there, got there. Came off and went and came back. And also the shot of when it comes back, you see like, because they had to put the camera there on the floor, and then they had to get into the little rocket, and then they're like, then there's someone on Earth controlling that camera to tilt up while the rocket or their little space thing, or what it's called, to launch back off the moon to come back to Earth. So this thing had to tilt up to watch it, but there's a 4-second delay to go to Earth and come back. And so there's someone sitting there like with a little joystick or whatever, so that when the thing lifts off, they've got to tilt the camera up to see it like fly off. And so they got to time it 4 seconds and a half. So you're going to be like psychic. You're going to be like, okay, well, like, I think it's going to go off now. And then be like 4 seconds ahead to tilt up to see the thing go off. And I mean, like, I've been in situations like that with, big shoots, and like you've got like one take and you like on like a joystick or like on the wheels or whatever, and you've got to like pan this thing, and it's in real time. It's not like you've got any delay. And sometimes I miss it because like there's so much pressure and fucking, and there's explosions going off and whatever, and you try and get it, and sometimes you can miss it. But this guy, he's got the most pressure probably in his whole life ever. And he's saying he's got to have like a 4 seconds delay to tilt up 4 seconds ahead. You know what I mean? Because the signal's going back and forth from him. And he nailed it. He got that thing, it just tilted up. He saw the rocket going off like that. And he was like the best shots. I mean, I think the film industry should hire that guy for all of the things, because like that was the most amazing shot. He pulled it off first time. And also, like, when you watch that footage, how stupid it looks like this toy-like thing that just floats off into it's like the dumbest looking video you've ever seen. But so that was also interesting.
But they also remember one other thing. These astronauts, when they interviewed them when they got back from space, one of the questions were asked about the stars. And I think it was Neil Armstrong. He said he can't remember if he saw stars. But Buzz Aldrin, that said, no, they couldn't see them. They couldn't see them at all.
This I know. That's also I was when I heard that the first time, I was like, okay, well, but that's interesting. But the thing is, when you're on the moon and the sun is shining, like, look, when you go outside,
reflection,
and you look at the stars, you need no light pollution whatsoever. Like, well, because we've also got an atmosphere, so obviously the light holds a lot. So if there's like a city, if you're in a city, you won't see stars. And if there's a moon, like, even if it's just a small crescent moon and it's out, the stars are not as visible. You know what I mean? Because there's not a light coming from that moon. Yeah. So, but the thing is that it's because of your pupils. So like if you're on the moon and you in the day on the moon, it's so bright, like the floor is reflecting so much light and the sun's on you. So your pupils are going to be very small. Like, your apertures in your eyes are going to be so small to adjust for that. So it will be hard to see stars. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you adjusted for such a brightness that when you look up, I'm sure you won't actually see the stars that well, because it's not actually that there's so much light around you all along the floor that, because when you're outside and you're looking at the star and it's completely dark, your pupils are completely open because you're trying to see as much light as possible in nighttime. So that's why the stars look so spectacular, because there's no light around you, and your irises and your eyes are completely open, and you can see any like tiny bit of light. So the stars will shine a lot. But when you're on the moon in full daylight and there's so much light around you reflecting off the ground and everywhere, your pupils are going to be very small. So it is going to be hard to see stars in the sky because you get what I'm saying. So that's what I thought about when I heard that thing. I was like, that's just silly argument, because you probably wouldn't be able to see the stars anyway, unless you're on the dark side of the moon, or like the.
But he was also confused, because Neil said, no, he can't remember. How do you not remember? It's something that you're the first man ever to walk on the moon. Surely you would know that. You'd look up and you'd say, geez, I can't see I can't see the stars. You'd know that. So when you got a question like, I can't remember actually what it was like.
Yeah, because they weren't briefed to say what to tell them.
Exactly. And when they were doing their whole conversation, they were nervous, those three, when they were doing their conference.
Yeah. The thing, because in their defense, like when you're a scientist and you're on the moon and you've got to do like all of your little things. I know they showed them doing a bit of playing around with it, but like you're there for a mission. There's a lot of safety. I think you're very focused and you're very, like, I'm sure they're nervous about their safety. They're going to live and like everything they had to do and fucking whatever. That, maybe they didn't have the time. They didn't think about, let me look at the stars. You know what I mean? Like, but. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's just one of my arguments, that thing. But you're right with that when they came back and they had that first press conference thing, I've never seen, when I saw watching those videos of Neil Armstrong giving that conference, I've never seen a man look so depressed in my life. I mean, they've come back, they've done the biggest feat of anybody they've ever done in their lives, and you would think they would be like an all
joyous,
so excited to share this experience. They're sitting there like fucking look like they are frightened. And
Yeah.
Neil Armstrong looks like he's about to kill himself. Like I thought that's it. He's gonna go, he's gonna split his wrist. He's out of here.
Yeah, and they were all, none of them were smiling, dude. They were all
Someone's
depressed, dude.
so depressed. But then I thought, okay, well, you know, like when people win the Oscar or like they win like a gold medalist that's been trained their whole life to run 100 meters and they win the gold medal. Like you hear these stories that now they've got the gold medal, or the person that's won the Oscar, they get into such a fucking depression. Like they all want to kill themselves because they've reached the limits of anything they've ever could achieve in their lives. Now there's nothing else they can achieve. So then they get into this huge depression. So, I mean,
I don't know because I've heard the Oscar awards when the guys are giving, and they're coming out. Most of the guys are like, "Woo, yeah, you're waiting for this, yeah, say, can do it again next year, woo."
So they should have still.
This looks like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, they should still be riding on that high. But then,
of course,
the 25th anniversary when Neil Armstrong, I think, because he never ever held another like meeting or like ever wanted to be filmed or anything ever again.
Yeah, unless the president asked. Yeah,
and he gave that one thing. I think it was 25 years later, the anniversary.
Yeah.
And he
took it to school kids.
He talks to school kids, and geez, I wish we could play it on here somehow, Lee. It was so fun.
Well, maybe I'll cut it in here. So let me do that. I'll actually put so guys, listen to this little piece here, what he was talking to the school kids about, and this is like a very weird thing.
A group of students
Can you hear
among
me?
America's best.
Yeah.
To you, we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Yeah, see now that
There are great ideas
is
undiscovered.
what truth protected layers. What is he talking about there?
Yeah, he says there's great. Wait, listen to it again.
That is undone.
Look,
To you, we say, we've only completed a beginning.
He says we've only completed a beginning.
Yeah.
Leave you much that is undone.
We leave you much which is undone.
Yeah.
There are great ideas undiscovered,
There are great ideas undiscovered.
breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
And they are
Okay, so what the fuck is that, dude? What is to remove the truth protected layers? What does that mean?
great.
That is like so cryptic, dude.
Great discoveries to be made if we can remove truth's protective layers. I mean,
So I want to ask a question. This guy was one of the most well-known faces on the earth at the time. He just went into obscurity, dude.
yeah,
He just disappeared. That was it. There was this, I don't know if when you were listening to Bart, he was mentioning a guy that was supposed to go to the moon originally before Neil Armstrong. A guy by the name of Gus Grimson was supposed to go to the moon, but he actually died before he could get to the moon. So now the conspiracy theory around that is that he was killed, and apparently his son has been interviewed, and his son said that they were never going to the moon. His father didn't want to be involved in it because they were trying to film it, fake it, to get them ahead of where the Russians are. So his son was told by him that this whole thing has been faked, and he didn't want anything to do with it, and that's why he was killed.
yeah. Well, because the thing is that because he was NASA's number one spokesperson, like the press loved him and everything, and he was always in front of the press, and he was so frustrated because he was saying like, there's no way we are going to get to the moon in this date. I mean, it's like the technology that we're using is so shit. It's never going to make it. And he was so frustrated. He actually took a lemon and he hung it on a coat hanger on the door of the rocket they were going to use, and took a picture of it with just to show, because that's just because you're saying this is a lemon. It's like it's not going to make it to the fucking moon.
Yeah.
So,
And then he was gone, man.
and the next day, apparently, they said that the CIA was his wife said that because his wife completely believes that he was killed by the CIA, because he said the next day the CIA came in there, they went into the capsule they were supposed to be in, and they were in there for the day, and then the CIA had never come into the NASA ever, and for some reason after he did that, they were there the one day, looking inside that thing. And then when they left the next day, they got in to do a test and they all burnt alive in that capsule. And they said they were found some oily rags underneath the seats that were that's where they were sitting that could catch fire, and there was a dip in the power surge or whatever that they. So it was very suspicious like activity, because that guy, he was just trying to tell the people that, look, this thing is the stupidest thing. We're never going to make it to the technology is crap.
Yeah.
So that was also quite very interesting.
And there was another thing that when they came back into the atmosphere and they landed out in the sea, when they got out of the module, they were walking around like it was like it was yesterday. The problem is that when you've been in space for, how was it, 3 days plus 4 days to get back, so about 7 days of weightlessness, you're not going to walk around like you were walking around for an hour ago. It's going to take you a couple of days to get back into your, you know what I mean?
Yes, well,
because your muscles start to deatrophy.
Just hold on, I'm just trying to find out. I'm trying to find that guy's name, man.
That was a Russian guy, Snorov Smarskovsky.
Yeah, close.
So if something happens to us within a year, then we don't take drugs. Well, hopefully not you anymore. I'm not prone to alcohol. Well, not you anymore. Hopefully. I'm not prone to suicide. So yeah, just as a back note. Can you imagine that? Number one wanted. number one most wanted people, William and Lee.
Okay, so Lee, what you're saying there, that's because that also sparked my interest again with the whole fake moon landing thing. Was just like I don't know if it was a year ago, if it was like it seemed like a couple of months ago, but the Dmitry Zolin, the former head of the Russian space agents in Roscosmos. So he was former head of the Russian space agency. He, because I remember this came out in like a few different papers or whatever, and he said that he thinks the moon landing was fake because, as you said, like when the Russian space agency, when they sent astronauts into space for just a day, when they came back, they would have to be rehabilitated, because have you ever been on a boat for a day? You
have wobbly legs.
You come back after your boat ride, you get on the ground, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell, wasn't so steady? It's a bit. So he said every time they sent astronauts to space or to do something and they came back, they would have to be rehabilitated for a bit because they couldn't even walk or whatever. And those guys went into space for a week to the moon and back. And then he says that when he watched a video of them getting out of the pod when they found them in the ocean, they got out and he said they just walked around like fresh as cucumbers. This was the word. The words. They around fresh as cucumbers, like they'd they'd gone nowhere. So that's what sparked off his belief that that was all a bunch of bullshit,
So like I said earlier, I'm so sad, dude, because when I was growing up, I absolutely loved that idea. I loved the ideas because when I was young, I was always one of these that were hoping to venture into space. One of my dreams when I was 5, 6, 7 years old was to be an astronaut, to go to the moon and to, because you'd heard all the stories, and it's almost like blowing your kid's dream out of the water. So I'm so disappointed, dude. I can't even explain when I was listening to all of that. Because like I said, I was so pro. I was pro it. I was like, no ways, they definitely did it. But after hearing all of that stuff and why we can't do it today, and Elon Musk's now idea of how we're going to get to the moon and what it's going to take and the amount of rocketry that's going to be, there's no ways they had it back then, dude. And what they used was not even an eighth of what it actually takes to get there. So it's like, fuck. Anyway.
Also, what was old von Braun's calculations? Because you said it in the beginning. Hey, you said that it was going to take 5 times the amount of power to lift it off, and they could only make quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe
his calculations, his math said there's no way. There's no ways they could get to the moon. No ways.
But also, okay. So another interesting thing was halfway to the moon, they filmed the Earth out of the window. they filmed Earth out of the window, and it was looked beautiful, whatever. But then all of a sudden they said that the camera was right up against the window. They said the camera was right up against the window, and you can see the Earth engulfed in the darkness of space. And and then Bart found the actual footage of that, and then you see while they're trying to film it, you see a hand go in front of the thing. It's all on his website, and it's surreal.com. And then all of a sudden the lights of the space shuttle go on, and you see that the camera isn't right up against the window. It's actually right back at the back of the spaceship, and you can see the wall of the spaceship and then the window there, and there's Earth perfectly in this window. And Bart says it's a transparency that they've plucked on there.
Yeah, like a paper cutter.
And they filmed it they filmed it. So, and obviously turn off the lights so the inside is dark, so it looks like this Earth's in space. But I mean, as a filmmaker myself, I know that sometimes you're in situations and you got to make some bullshit up. So when he was saying that, I was saying okay, cool, but it doesn't mean that they didn't go.
No, they just faked the photo.
Because I'm just thinking that window on the fucking where they filmed it out. I mean, maybe that wasn't the window. Maybe they're in space and they're halfway there, and they're like, oh fuck, we can't actually film the Earth because the window's on the side here and the Earth's below us, and there's no window. There's no window below. So how are we gonna film the Earth now? We can't do it. Oh, okay, let's just quickly stick a thing here and I mean, it would have been premeditated because they would have had to bring those things with them. But maybe that's what was the thing, because they couldn't actually film the Earth from halfway there because there was no window facing the Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you've just brought up a point now. They would have to actually bring a picture of the Earth with them to put it on the window. It's
so
that they would know that they weren't going to be facing Earth.
And also
it's such a couple mistakes, dude.
And also the other thing is, with the whole shadow thing, where they said that the shadows, the other big
90 degrees, you can actually do it though.
And I mean, because there was a whole thing on History Television. There was a documentary that made it fake, to see if the shadows would do. But they somehow kind of came out at the other end saying that it was real. But the shadows, they merge. So if you take two street poles, you put them next to each other, and you watch in the evening, the shadows, they will just go on into infinity.
Yes. And
they won't merge together. So I'm just saying to the viewers now.
Yeah.
So the shadows won't merge together because
they'll run parallel.
Because of the inverse square law. Because obviously further the light source, further the more or less the things are going to converge. Because of the inverse square law. So the sun is so far away that if you have two things on Earth, those two lines, the shadows will run forever. But now if you've got a light that's closer, like an artificial light, this was so funny on Joe Rogan. You got old what's his name? The guy in the background there, old Jamie, is and they arguing, and he's like, "Yo, why did he?" And Bart keeps on saying electrical lighting. He's like, "Yo, you can see it's electrical lighting," and then Jamie's like, "Yo, but why you keep saying electrical lighting? It could be any lighting you need." I'm thinking, why are you? Okay, artificial lighting. Just call it artificial lighting. So Jamie doesn't have a fit there in the background because he's making his daddy high school dreams or whatever. So artificial lighting. If you bring a light source closer to two objects, the shadows will merge because of the inverse square law. Obviously, now that the light source closer to the object, the shadows will merge. So that's what this photo is. He was showing all of how the shadows were all merging because they're using artificial light sources. And my argument for that was that now you're gonna go and do the biggest mission on the planet. Now just say you do actually get there and now everything fails, your film fails, you can't actually get the signal back, and now how do you prove it? What the fuck's gonna happen? You get there and now there's no way of proving it. So what if you go and you make a backup? You do if everything fails, we're on the moon and we can't fucking transmit the shit back. The film fucks out, whatever, the camera breaks, whatever. At least we've got this backup so we can just transmit it while they're there.
You're 100% right, but that's why I've
never
put
so
much
bad quality. Maybe you can't actually. There's such dark shadows because none of them are actually camera operators or whatever. So maybe let's just project. Let's just show them the nice stuff so it looks nice and they can see what's going on. And But the other thing was that then there was a recording. There was a voice recording that also came out when Bart found all of that stuff from NASA. That when they spoke to the astronauts on the spaceship, they said there was somebody that would count down, because there was supposed to be a 4-second delay. So then
So we counted it down.
Astronauts would say something, and then there was someone on the back of going, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, answer. And then they would answer. But then obviously when they showed that to the public, they cut out the guy saying that. But then when Bart got the raw footage, there was always a dude in between everything they said between the astronauts and Mission Command. There was always a guy counting down 4 seconds for them to reply and answer. That was the other thing that they said there. Yeah, and anyway,
but that's also why I've never taken, like I said, I've never taken much stock in the video and the footage, because of that exact reason. Radiation belt could have damaged the cameras outside. The heat could have damaged the cameras. Maybe they didn't work, because remember, they'd never been tested before on the moon. They'd never been tested, the camera, so they would never know how it's going to work. So I've always thought maybe that's what happened. They got to the moon, they couldn't use the stuff because it was completely dead. So they had backups. I've always said that. But what's changed my mind was the other shit that came up.
Yeah, exactly. But there's also Bart goes into the thing that he got an interview from a guy on his deathbed that was working at I forgot what the one military base, and on his deathbed he confessed to killing somebody. And then they said, well, why did you kill somebody? And he said, no, because the guy saw the filming of the moon landing at the military base there, and we had to kill him so that the information wouldn't come out. And he confessed it on his deathbed. And then Joe Rogan was, he was like, yeah, but
the could be mad.
No, you're dying, whatever. But the thing is that, there's my argument, obviously, I'm sure they did film something for a backup just in case they couldn't transmit something. So, but there's no point. It's not good to kill someone about it.
So now, obviously, the CIA and stuff and all those guys were involved with that, as you said earlier. Now, have you ever heard of something called Kona Blue?
No, but I'll just refresh my might have, but I know that on because Joe Rogan also interviewed Tucker Carlson. It's been quite a few months with Joe Rogan, because he interviewed Tucker Carlson, Bart Sibels, and Diana Wells Pasulka, which I thought was, and also Terrence Howard. Have you seen the Terrence Howard thing? Geez,
dude, Terrence, we got to do a separate podcast on Terrence Howard, because this oak is one of my heroes. I absolutely love this guy. I watch everything that he's done. He's absolutely phenomenal, dude. And you remember how I've always been going on about frequencies. Everything's about frequency. That's exactly what he talks about. So I absolutely love the guy. But we'll definitely do a podcast on Terrence Howard. We'll do one just on him.
I know, but I love what he's saying, because I love it when anybody shakes up the normal. I fucking love it. It's like, yes, even if it's fucking not true, just fucking shake the masses up a bit and just I had an argument with my sister today, because she was going on about something, she was in the back, and I was talking to my dad, and I could hear her shouting about something. And I just said, I shouted out because we were on speakerphone. I said, "Stop following the masses. They're lost."
So one stupid thing with the Terrence Howard thing, just the most basic thing that I laughed about, is he's talking about the subtraction, multiplication, division, and addition. Okay. So now the stupid thing that he says, all right, so if you've got one item and you subtract something from that one item, okay, you're going to have no item. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay. That's how it works. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 times 1. So now you're multiplying the 1. How does it still give you 1? That was just one of the stupid things that he said. 1 times 1 is 1. How's it possible? Because you're supposed to be multiplying. That math shouldn't be in. It shouldn't be in there. It makes no sense. So when you've got multiplication, that means you are multiplying that 1. You can't be multiplying that 1 with 1 and it's giving you 1. It makes no sense.
That's the thing with that Terrence Howard thing. As I was saying, I just love it when somebody shakes up the norm just to, they might be a bit off or whatever.
But anyway, back on this Kona
I
Blue.
wish I could just understand what he was saying a lot of the time because it sounded amazing, but I'm just like, what the fuck are you saying? But I wish I could because it sounded amazing, but I couldn't. Like most of it just went over my head, but it sounded amazing.
No, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. So back to Kona Blue.
Yeah.
So Kona Blue is this thing that was released, I think it was in 2017. It's a government project that was developed or started for back engineering UFOs. Okay, it was another program. And after how many years they said they weren't investigating UFOs? They weren't doing any of the stuff, the Pentagon.
For 47.
Eh? They've constantly said no, they've never done it. It's now been off. Now Kona Blue came out and they said no. It was out for a couple of years. And then they stopped because they couldn't find any evidence of alien craft. But the guy that was talking to Tucker Carlson, one of his inside guys, he said, no, they've been working on Kona Blue for a long time. Definitely they found things and definitely that's been working, but it might have changed name now. So not might have changed, it's changed name now. It's no longer called Kona Blue. So these guys have released something again to say, yes, they were looking into it. They spent $20 million the first year. They spent, $15 million the first year, $20 million the second year, and eventually they'll end up spending $50 million a year. If you're spending $15 million a year of taxpayers' money to do nothing, that doesn't make sense. If you were going for it for a year and you said, okay, nah, there's nothing here, that's cool. Release it to the public and say, okay, guys, we've checked this out, we've been running it for a year, we can't find anything, that's cool. But you keep it secret and you use all that money to investigate what? So again, the Pentagon is involved and the CIA is involved with deception. So this is what the whole Tucker Carlson thing is about. This is what old Bart Sibels was saying. All these guys that are coming on and saying it all points to the same dudes. It all points to the CIA and the Pentagon. Those guys, and also with the whole David Grush story that's coming out now where he's trying to, him and Lou Elizondo. I don't know if you know the whole story about Lou Elizondo, but he's been threatened by the CIA, him and his family.
Yes, I
to
saw
stop doing what he's doing. And again, it's the same freaking industrial complex. It's the same guys. And Eisenhower, he threatened. He said, "Be careful of the industrial military complex." He said, "Be careful. These guys are coming."
Yeah, I mean, there's a great famous video of him saying that. Yeah.
So again, these guys are involved in deception, and everybody eats it up like it's candy.
That's why I wish something like even if it's just like the JFK assassination or the 9/11 or whatever, or the moon landing. I mean, obviously there would be a big one, but even if it's just saying like the JFK, something would come out that's that
would show all this stuff.
Like, they would like completely convince everybody, like, okay, no, it was the CIA or whatever.
But yeah, somebody was saying that JFK actually wanted to get the guys out of Vietnam because Vietnam was actually a war that was never meant to be won. They always knew they were going to lose it, but it was there for the money because they were selling weapons and some stuff. I don't know. It was the whole Pentagon thing, and that's and he knew about it. He wanted to get the guys out. I know that story.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like all of the stuff about he knew too much about the UFO phenomenon, and with Marilyn Monroe, because he was having an affair with Marilyn Monroe at the time, and they put out a book, and he would discuss obviously secrets about the. And that's because she also she also died. They said it was from an overdose of Mandrax or whatever, the drugs.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, if you look around that whole thing, like, why did he die and she died with girlfriend, and like obviously they killed her as well because she knew something that he said. So yeah, and also like the whole UFO conspiracy thing, like he knew something about the UFOs or whatever, and he was telling her. I mean, that's just one of the things.
So now Kona Blue is, like I said, it was this investigation, but it also had to do with remote viewing. They got the medical guys involved because they were now going to go and research people that have been contacted or have got sick from these things. So they were going to go and investigate what kind of problems were arising when people were having contact.
Yeah. Radiation
sickness, whatever sicknesses. So that was also one of the things that Kona Blue was there to do. So the medical guys were getting involved to see what what people were experiencing when they were experiencing these encounters. So, and remote viewing is part of the whole thing as well for Kona Blue. So again, they said that they stopped, but they carried on going. So
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I must look more into that. But there's a lot of great stuff with Tucker Carlson on Joe Rogan, which was fascinating. But have we missed out any points on the moon landing? What other strong points were there?
no, I think we got there because, like I said, the things that drew me, besides the photos that we're talking about, which I've never held much credence for the photos because of obvious reasons of perhaps why they didn't work. But the fact that A, fuel wasn't enough to get there. B, the protection through the Van Allen belt wasn't enough to protect them. C, the rocketry propel systems wasn't enough to get them there. The batteries that they were using inside the modules to keep all electrics going and the air conditioning going was not enough. It didn't have enough power to do that. And it was too heavy. These batteries, I think they weighed almost like 30, 40 kilos for batteries. And you wouldn't have enough batteries to keep the module going as it is.
Yeah,
You know
sure.
what I mean?
To go for a week, and I mean the weight of those batteries are like, I mean that's like 30 kilograms per battery. I mean it's fucking like, and they really didn't have enough fuel to get there. So imagine powering.
Yeah, and then trying to get off the moon surface, which they'd never practiced before. They'd never had it done, so they weren't sure how much propulsion was needed. If you shot up too quickly, you know what I mean. There was a whole big thing about that as well.
And also there was also that thing about those videos of them putting the flag on and then the flags flapping in the wind.
Yeah,
but I mean I think those and there's no wind on the moon, but those jetpack or those things that they have on them because they got aircon or whatever inside those suits.
Yeah.
Saw that there's air being pushed out somewhere. Maybe that was flapping the thing, but I think
possible.
Actually a shot of the flag by itself just was flapping a bit in the wind there. So that was also another interesting thing. But the Van Halen belt's the main thing for me.
Yeah, and the other thing is the AR. So they've actually fed. So the AR that they've got now, they fed photos from India, the moon landings, photos from China, the moon landings, and photos from back in the 60s. And the AI have said India is true. That's a true footage. China is true footage, and the footage from the 1969 landing is absolute false.
Yes, because there was that big AR conference that happened like recently, and they had this special AR that could show anything that it could
doctored,
could see if anything was fake. And they thought, okay, let's put the moon landing stuff in, and it came out and said, no, the ones in the 60s is fake.
Yeah.
And, so that was very interesting. And then also, you said it earlier, but the other argument is like, okay, well, if Russia and China and everyone knows that the government's talking shit, the American government's talking shit about the moon landing because they can't even do it and they know that it's not possible, why aren't they saying anything? And it's because they blackmailing.
Yeah, it's easier. I'd rather blackmail you and get money and get information than go and tell everybody, well, I get nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point.
Right, well, guys, thanks, man, for joining us once again into our new season. Hope you enjoy the new intro and exit music. Well, thank you again for your time, and we'll spot you next week. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, man. Cheers.